Continue our commitment to keep you informed during Decision 2024. We've invited every candidate for federal office here into the 12 News studios. Today we're focusing on the race for the U.S. Senate seat that's being vacated by independent Kyrsten Sinema. We interviewed the Republican candidate, Kari Lake, a little over 2 weeks ago. And earlier today I had the chance to sit down with her opponent, Democrat Ruben Gallego. Now, although this is a taped interview, there are no edits. And joining us now is the Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate, Congressman Ruben Gallego. Thank you for being here, Congressman. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with the border, if we can. It's a big topic everybody's talking about. You've been in Congress a number of years. You know we probably need some new border laws. Obviously, I know you guys have been working on it.
And investments, yeah.
Right. So if you are the next border U.S. Senator here from Arizona, what's in the Ruben Gallego bill, border bill, that can get passed, not only through Congress, but get signed by the president?
Well, I think the border security compromise bill that we passed before but was eventually rejected by Republicans, we should bring it back and add some more elements to it. Number one, more judges. And I think the judges can't just be in different parts. We should have judges at the border. So that way we could be determining who actually has a right to claim asylum. And if you don't, quickly deport them. 90% of people that come to the border do not have a claim for asylum. They should not be allowed to stay here for years and years until they get their court hearing. That's what encourages more people to come.
Right.
The other thing is we have to expand the ports of entry. So Arizona in particular our ports of entry are too small. We're not getting a lot of business in terms of trade because of that. And we need more customs and police officers so that way we could check everything coming through, more technology, check for fentanyl, because 80% of fentanyl actually comes through the border, and then add more border patrol. That was originally in the part of the original bill, but make sure it actually happens quickly, as well as changing the rules. And here's where we can add more border patrol, but it takes too long in terms of training and the background checks in order for us to actually get enough through the pipeline. So we really have to figure out, for example, what I did early on in my career, joining with Martha McSally to help veterans who already had classified clearance to cross over quickly and become Border Patrol. I just joined in with Republican Dan Crenshaw to help federal law enforcement not have to re-go through the background check again in order to become Border Patrol, since they already did it anyway. These are the kind of things.
Border Patrol officers on the ground more quickly.
Correct, and also making it easier for this is from conversations with Border Patrol, what they've told me, is making it easier for Border Patrol just to hire even local police. Sometimes they don't even have that right to do it, and they have to wait for sometimes months, maybe in a year before they get one new Border Patrol agent, which is not helpful, especially when you have these huge surges.
All right, so what about the millions of people who are here now who have crossed the border illegally? As you just said, 90% of these asylum claims are going to be unsuccessful. So what do we do with them?
Well, I think what we have to do is, number one, have a judicious process to actually get them to their hearings and, of course, deport them if they don't have a proper asylum.
So explain that to me, because we're talking about millions of people. Would you have local police? How would you find the people who are here now?
Well, almost 99% of them actually are already filed. They have to file where they're living, and they have to show up for the asylum cases, right? So you have them go through the asylum case. You have a judge. The reason we don't have as much asylum cases happening around is because there's not enough judges. Hire more judges, have them come and put their asylum hearing together. They will, if they get rejected for the asylum hearing, then they get deported. That's a judicious process that honors our respect for the rule of law, but also gives them an opportunity to prove themselves. But the process that we have right now is broken. Because right now it takes an average of 5 to 7 years for your first asylum hearing. And then the second one, if you appeal, will be another 2 years. So for 9 years, a lot of them will still be here. Now, that's why they're abusing the system, because they know that they're not going to get it.
But wouldn't you need a massive amount of people to go out and find these people, and then, like you said, more judges because at some point a judge has to look at their cases before they're deported.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You have to hire them more judges so that you could actually give them their case, and then they get deported. Most of these asylum, and I say most, they want to go through the process. They know that if they actually get an asylum hearing and they win the asylum hearing, they get to stay. If they don't, then they're going to get deported, but they'd rather take their chances and get here legally than not. So this is why doing this in the best manner that honors our due process, have as many judges as possible, and then go through the process that happens already. If you get rejected for asylum right now, you will get deported. That's just how it is. And what we're doing right now is making sure that there is due process with more judges here.
And turning them around right there at the border if they're not going to have their asylum.
Yes, and that's the second key.
That's the big change.
Yeah, that would be the big change, bringing the judges to the border so that way they don't end up here for 5, 7 years or anything else like that.
All right, let's talk about the economy. That's the other big issue that I think a lot of voters are talking about. We've talked about inflation. It has slowed down a little bit, but the cost of living is tough for a lot of people.
Yep.
The Republicans are talking a lot about energy costs and more drilling and things like that. What would be your solution to help this economy?
Well, I think the drilling wouldn't help Arizona. We have no drilling here, but we
They
actually
bring down energy costs.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we need to do in terms of energy costs is actually invest more in renewable energies as well as nuclear. And in Arizona, we have a growing problem, which is caused by two good things. Number one, we have a lot of people that are moving here, and we have a lot of high-tech, high-energy consumption industry that's moving here. We need to make sure that we grow our opportunity to actually have low energy costs. And while I like renewables, that can only be a portion of it. We're going to have to amp up our nuclear capability.
How do you amp up nuclear at this point? That's a massive investment.
Two things. Number one, so we work with what we have with Palo Verde, make sure that we keep it operable, and if you can add another generating station there. Two, there's also
so you'd want to add a fourth reactor to Palo Verde.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's cited for actually 5. The other thing is there's new technology coming out called small modular reactors. These are reactors that require less water and have less of a regulatory time to get built. So they get built in 5 years. I want to place them in areas where we're actually decommissioning these coal mines. Number one, you keep people employed. But number two, you're actually keeping stable power. The other thing about these type of new reactors is that they're stackable. So as you need more energy growth, you could just bring a new one and just stack it right next to it, and it takes your kilowatts more, and you could increase your kilowatts.
Are you looking at places here in Arizona for those small reactors?
So I particularly want to cite places that are closing down. So for example, if you have areas like St. John's, they have a coal power plant that's going to be shutting down in 2031. I want to work with the community, and we've had some conversations already with community leaders, including the mayor of St. John's, to see if they're interested in this, and see if we could, number one, the community needs to have buy-in, but number two, citing those places because it's beneficial to them for jobs, but also it's cheaper for you per kilowatt to building it next to places that already have transmission lines. So old power plants have transmission lines. So all you're doing is basically changing the generation of the energy from coal to nuclear.
Well, nuclear is clean-ish. I was just out of Palo Verde, and a big part of Palo Verde is all their spent fuel.
Yes.
That's going to be dangerous for 30,000 years.
Right.
What are you going to do with that?
Well, look, it's definitely clean-ish, but it is definitively more cleaner than burning fossil fuels, right? And storing it on site is one option. The other thing you don't have to understand, but the small modular reactors actually produce way less nuclear waste than your modern nuclear power plant. As well as there are other new technologies for full nuclear power plants that are moving from fission to fusion that would actually end up being cleaner too.
All right, we just had a story on our newscast a couple of days ago. 250,000 people moving to Arizona in the last year. 700 people a day. And I said, imagine a crowd of 700 people. They're showing up every single day. Housing's a real issue here. The cost of housing. All right, I know it's tough solutions for those. What would you do?
Well, number one, we have to actually allow people to buy homes. Right now, your average home competitor or home buyer is competing probably a third of the time against a major corporation that's buying our houses as to be part of their portfolio, right? So hedge funds, private equities, they're 1/3 of all the homes, for example, in 2022 were bought by these multi-billion-dollar corporations.
So you would ban them from buying homes?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we used to do that. So this is nothing new. Back prior to the 2008, before the home crash, we didn't allow massive institutions to buy these types of homes because it creates what you have right now, this massive home ownership that actually ends up capping who can buy homes and controlling the cost of everything. If you're a home buyer, a lot of times you're competing against a cash buyer, and that cash buyer is someone from New York City.
But they provide rental houses, so we're having issues even with people trying to find a house to rent.
But so even for rental houses, for example, what you're seeing is these major corporations are now colluding to keep houses rent high. So for example, we just saw this happen with RealPage, something that I noticed right away, and I made sure that the Federal Trade Commission, as well as the Attorney General, investigated. And what they found was these massive corporations were colluding with each other to keep rent high. They would actually tell one rental company, one landlord, hey, don't rent out your place, hold out for another month, and we could all raise our rent at the same time. That's collusion. You wouldn't allow that in any other industry. You certainly don't get that when it comes to property. That's on one side. We have to increase supply too. And so the federal government has not done a good job about bringing in low-income housing tax credits, which is very important for building in some of our poorer areas. When it comes to actually bringing house grants, we are way behind, for example, the Midwest, which has a declining population. We don't receive as much housing support as those states because we're still factored on old bills.
Would you agree with Vice President Harris, who's saying she wants to give $25,000 to first-time home buyers? And where does that money come from?
Well, I think that's a first step. Now, you could, for a lot of that, there's easy ways to find the savings for that, as well as also just giving a low interest loan on it. So I think the solution should also be going to, right now, where we have a 3.5 usual FHA, first home owner buyer's loan is 3.5%. 3.5% when your average Maricopa house right now is about $500,000. That's about $20,000 after closing costs. Most young families don't have $20,000. Right now, if you look at some private companies like Rocket Mortgage, for example, they're offering 1% down with good credit. I think that's where we should move to. If you have good credit, you should move to 1% down. That is actually more manageable now. And lastly, just increasing other ways to increase supplies, making sure that we have, the workers that need to do this. I grew up working construction. I was a construction worker all the way until I got to college. My family are all a bunch of carpenters. When you don't have enough carpenters and construction crews working, you're going to have this problem. As a matter of fact, the biggest problem we have right now is a lot of the construction crews that used to work on housing are now building the chips plants. So we need to make sure we're bringing in new workers into that, whether that's through the community college system, retraining people, bringing time first-time offenders that are coming out of jail, giving them a job and a skill. We just need to get more people into the pipeline to actually build these houses.
And encouraging them to get into the trades, for sure. All right, we have about a minute and a half left here. So let's talk about federal spending. Yeah. Because we just saw a stat the other day, and I remember last time I reported on this, it was 30 cents of every dollar we spent or something was debt.
Yeah.
And now it's even more. How do we rein this in, and where do you cut? Because nobody wants to lose their money, right?
Yeah. Well, you have to look at each individual program and figure out where to cut. Or you could find savings. One of the things that we saw when we negotiated drug prices, that we were able to save Medicare billions of dollars. Now, what does that mean? That means Medicare now has a longer solvency, and also means that we're not borrowing as much money to pay for Medicare. That was only with 10 drugs. Now, what I want to do is make sure we negotiate it with all the drugs that Medicare recipients use, and that could save us even billions and billions of dollars more. We already do this, by the way, with the VA and the Department of Defense. The Department of Defense and the VA, they negotiate all the prescription drugs that veterans, like I receive, or while you're in the military. That's going to save their billions of dollars.
So that's a small slice, but your biggest, of course, spending is Social Security. Do you see putting a cap on Social Security benefits or some sort of a test for income?
Social Security doesn't actually affect our national debt. Social Security itself, though, we have to make sure is solvent. What I want to do is raise the cap on Social Security. When I say raise the cap, people that make more than $400,000 are going to start paying more when it comes to Social Security, because right now it's capped at $160,000 and it keeps raising, and that's not keeping up with growth. So with time. But by doing this, and I actually have a bill, it's called the Social Security Act of 2100, it would extend 100% Social Security solvency to 2060, right? So that's
with those higher incomes.
With those higher incomes, yeah.
Congressman, we're out of time. Thank you so much for coming in, and good luck to you coming up next week.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that was a 12-minute interview, same amount of time that we gave to Kari Lake, and you can watch my interviews with both Ruben Gallego and Kari Lake, plus all of our congressional candidate interviews on 12 Plus. So make sure you're ready for Election Day. Get 12 Plus downloaded onto your TV. 12 Plus is where we'll stream hours of live coverage on election night, local and state races, as the results roll into the newsroom. So search for the 12 Plus app on your Apple TV, Fire TV, or Roku, and we'll be right back.